Welcome to the Talented Learning Show podcast, episode 81, with independent learning tech analyst John Lay. Today I interview Brendan Noud, co-founder and CEO of LearnUpon, about deploying a single LMS for employee, customer, and partner audiences, extended enterprise. You can find more of our fiercely independent content at talentedlearning.com. Welcome back, listeners, to another episode of the Talented Learning Show podcast. On this show, I'm fortunate to interview the world's leading experts in learning solutions from both the vendor and the practitioner perspectives. Today's no different. From the vendor expert side of the fence, we have one of the industry's longest serving CEO and founders, Brendan Noud, now in his 12th year at LearnUpon. LearnUpon is one of the fastest growing LMS solutions in the world, now with over 1,500 global organizational customers. And they thrive in the corporate space, providing an extended enterprise LMS solution that allows organizations to support both learner audiences and any type of external learner audience of partners or customers or contractors, resellers, distributors, all in the same LMS solution. It's really the holy grail for many organizations not to have to run 3 or more LMSs and not to manage the duplicity of platforms, content, cost, process, risk. But it's easier said than done. And so what we wanted to do today with Brendan is talk about the state of the corporate market, what's important to buyers, why organizations, or what's their current state with LMS, one LMSs or multiple LMSs, how they consolidate, why they would want to consolidate, why they switch off one vendor to another, how AI is impacting the solution, how different organizations can work together to consolidate their learning systems. We have a really good conversation coming up about all things extended enterprise. Brendan, welcome to the Talented Learning Show. It's sure great to have you here.
Thanks for having me. Great to talk to you again, and looking forward to our conversation.
Me too. Every time. We've having update calls now for 10 years. I can't believe you've never been on the podcast because I've been following your solution since it was just a little baby swaddled and crawling all the way to the behemoth you've grown into now. And so congratulations on all of that. But let's start at the top for those that may not know who LearnUpon is. So why don't you tell us about who you are and why you founded the company and a little bit about your organization. We'll start there.
Great. Thanks, John. Yeah. Myself and my co-founder, Des Anderson, LearnUpon CTO, we started LearnUpon 12 years ago now. So on the one hand, it seems like a lifetime ago, but also the other hand, it feels like it was only the other day that we started on this journey. We had previously worked together in the LMS space. Previously, we were both with WBT Systems. So I was 8 years there. Des was 12. So we had a lot of experience, loved the space. Two of us were very passionate about it. Des was on the technical side. I was more salesy. And so, yeah, we spent a lot of time working together on clients' side, traveling. I guess we were friends first and foremost, but then separately just kept talking about maybe what the opportunity would be in the market for a different type of LMS platform. We were very passionate about ease of use, speed of setup, and also customer support. We just felt, a lot of companies were, selecting LMS vendors and often left to their own devices or not getting great support. And that's something we've been very passionate about. And in 2012, we decided to give it a go. We went out to build our own platform. It's, as you mentioned, it's changed a lot over that time. But our early days, we focused on small training companies. We gave them a platform where they could sell and deliver their courses to their customers. They could create branded portals in 60 seconds and license their content down. And at the time, there was no one else was really doing that kind of multi-portal idea. And so we got a lot of early traction, and we were in a position, we were bootstrapped for a long time, for the first 7 or 8 years, but we kind of grew the business, started moving more into the corporate space and kind of extended enterprise, multi-audience training, again, leveraging that portal feature in the product. And we got a lot of traction there. We love the idea of not just internal employee training, but also training customers, partners, resellers with a single solution. And we've, today we've almost 300 people globally. So it's a long way from where the two of us started. We've over 1,500 customers, over 20 million users on the platform. And it's been great fun. And yet we feel we're only getting started. We're just like, there's so much more to do. and the quality of the team we have. I think it energizes myself and Des every day that we get to work with amazing people who are as passionate about the space as we are.
Wow, that's great. Now you're my favorite type of leaders. Both were doers, and then transition transitioned into entrepreneurs in your own company. That's really where all the passion comes from. So I love to see that you live now in the corporate space. The corporate space has certainly changed, and it's changed during the pandemic and it's changed afterwards. What's your ideal customer look like right now? Who gets the most value from a Learn Upon solution?
Yeah, so we love to work with, I would say, kind of enterprise, mid-enterprise customers, particularly companies with a few thousand employees, where they're looking to train multiple audiences. So we'll often start with one use case. It could be customer training. They might have a legacy internal LMS and they're maybe not overly happy with it, and they don't want to expose their customers to that from a customer academy perspective, and they'll go look for a new solution. And we're very successful there. I think the learner experience in the platform really resonates, and it's very seamless, easy for uh, external audiences to kind of log in, take the training, that kind of thing. And then we'll tend to expand from there. And often when the opportunity comes up to win the internal employee training use case, we'll go for that too. And we'll have built up a strong track record with the customer. They'll know what our team are like to work with, and we'll look to kind of expand from there. We also see a lot of consolidation. So companies that have 2 or 3 different LMSs are looking to consolidate onto a single platform, and we love those opportunities as well. So we've seen a lot of success with software companies, high growth software companies for their customer training. Also, we do very well with sporting organizations, nonprofits, people who are training coaches, volunteers. Again, people where you don't want a big support overhead. You could be training tens of thousands, hundreds of thousands of end users, and the last thing you need is a big overhead of answering questions, and people can't log into the platform or the platform's not available. So for those kinds of customers, LearnUpon's a great solution. It's just so reliable, so stable, so easy to use. So yeah, quite broad across a lot of different verticals and industries, but they're probably the ones where we see a lot of success.
Mm-hmm. Inside of those verticals, or more specifically in the corporate space, is there any organizations left that don't have an LMS? Is every opportunity a replacement opportunity or not?
This is one of the things that still shocks me. I've like 20 years in this space since myself and Des started, and we've ops coming in every day, and I would say 40%, maybe 50%, it's their first LMS. And it just baffles me because you just
How can that
assume at
be?
this stage the market is saturated. Even yesterday, I saw some new ops coming in, like a company with 2,000 employees, and this is their first LMS. And I'm like, how can you get to that size? They're managing their training on Zoom, on spreadsheets, kind of, but they don't have a full LMS solution. And so while there's a lot of replacements for sure, like I'd say it's probably a bit over half. It's still, and I think there's 2 combinations there. I think there's newer companies, high growth companies like ourselves, where they're actually hitting that, say, where they need their first, they put in a HRIS system maybe in the last 12, 18 months, and they put in a finance system. And one of the next things they want to do is to put in a learning platform that will integrate with the HRIS. So there's always those kind of just new companies that aren't around that long. But then you've well-established companies with 1,000, 2,000 employees, and for some reason they're only getting around to implementing an LMS now. So yeah, for me that's really exciting, because the opportunity, the market, obviously it's a very mature space, but it still seems there's a lot of greenfield, and then there's obviously a lot of replacement opportunity where people aren't happy with their current vendor for one reason or another. So
Mm-hmm.
yeah, it still kind of surprises me. You just assume particularly most mature companies would have an LMS, but doesn't seem to be the case.
Oh, that's amazing. I lived in the space for 30 years, and I asked the question with the intention of you saying no, it's all replacement business. So
Yeah,
you surprised me
yeah.
on top of you being surprised. Is it more likely if an organization's buying their first LMS that they take an extended enterprise approach of all audiences, or is it more common that they would pick one and then expand from there?
They'll usually lead with one. There's usually a key kind of driver or buyer who's going out to solve a problem. So it could be, the head of CX, for example, that is a company is scaling and they're struggling to scale their implementation or their customer support system, and they can see the value of an LMS there to help with onboarding, the rollout of new features, enablement. So it's generally there's one key driver, particularly for a first time like kind of LMS. And then as mentioned, like on the internal side as well, that's often a big driver. It's kind of I think companies hit a certain scale. We saw it ourselves, like when we hit about 150 people, obviously we had LearnUpon available to us from day one. But when we really started using it, when we made that our first L&D hire, I suppose about 100 people, our first internal, and that was when we really started to use LearnUpon to its max. And we've obviously we use it every day now. And I would see a lot of companies similar to us, when you kind of hit 100, 150, 200 people, you'll have an HR platform, but at that point you start to look at how can we better enable, train our teams, start to think about career paths, skills and competencies start to come into play. Again, we went through this journey ourselves, and that's where the value of a learning platform really starts to come into its own, and companies start to go to market to see what solutions are out there.
Mm-hmm. So if you replace a learning management system, what are the most common reasons that you see that organizations would come to that decision?
So a couple of things we would see arrange. Sometimes the support isn't good, and people aren't happy with, I suppose, the engagement on the platform. We also see quite a few where they're just not happy with the level of innovation. As you know, John, the space is moving very quickly the last couple of years. Obviously, some vendors are really investing in that, investing a lot in R&D into new technologies. But there's other platforms that aren't. And I think we've talked to prospects that have been on an LMS for the last 8-10 years. It had a lot of interesting functionality back in 2012, 2013, when it was all about gamification and leaderboards and badging and things like that. But they haven't progressed from there. And so those prospects are looking to move to a newer platform. I think the other area, pricing, is often comes up as well. I think there are some platforms out there, particularly if you're looking to extend to multiple audiences. Suddenly the price can come prohibitive, particularly if it's an external audience where, let's say, you want to train your customer base and you have 10,000 or 20,000 customers. Your existing vendor just may not have a pricing model that will work with that. So that can be a driver for people to look at, okay, what other solutions are on the market that are a better fit for training an external audience. I'd say they were the main thing. I would say support, lack of investment in the platform, and maybe pricing will be the key drivers we'd see.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, those would be the same ones I see. I also think that it's possible to hit the functionality wall once you start going to multiple audiences, not only the budget wall, but just the features needed for the two groups certainly are common, but it's unique also for the external learners, and a lot of organizations, a lot of LMS solutions don't have that. So you mentioned that the industry is moving rapidly right now, that for sure. What do you see as the biggest changes here over the last year? What are the big trends in the market in the corporate space now, as opposed to a few years ago?
Yeah, I think as we think about it, like learning is just becoming much more spread across the life cycle of the employee, right from even before they get hired, like even pre-boarding, onboarding, and then right the way through like their journey with the company as they move into different roles, as they move in their career path differently, but also just day to day as they do their job. We see like a lot of customers now, and we're very focused on is delivering training in the flow of work. Obviously, as people are doing their jobs, how can we give them the information they need to be more efficient in their role, whether that's a sales rep, a technical support rep, whoever it might be, a frontline work member of the workforce, being able to serve up bite-sized information as and when they need it. So I think learning has become much less structured, and this kind of event you need to do your compliance training at, once a quarter or once a year. And the idea that, the LMS is the destination, that you need to go off and log into the LMS and find the course and complete it. That training still exists, but there's a lot more value there. And we, our recent products with LearnUpon Anywhere, where we can embed training, context relevant training into the flow of work, whether it's into Slack, Salesforce, Zendesk, employee apps, right in the moment of need and when it'll have the biggest impact. That's very exciting for us. And then I just think the structure of learning and our course content is just becoming much more bite-sized. The kind of formal course structure that we would have known for many years, where you kind of work through module by module and then you do your exam and you get your certificate. I think now it's much more about information and knowledge, and just being able to serve up a 2 or 3 minute video to someone with the key piece, rather than having to go through a full course and give them the information they need, is a lot of what we're seeing. And so we've been evolving our platform to kind of lean into that, and just have learning play a role. Like I say, less about it being this kind of destination, this thing that you do as an event every now and again, to being just part of your day. And we're all learning, we're all growing, and that has a direct impact on our customers. The efficiency, the success of their teams, and it goes directly into the kind of bottom line for the company.
What do you think? Thanks for that. What do you think are the advantages an organization should think about of having one learning management system for both internal and external audiences? What do you get? And I guess conversely, do you give anything up by everybody being on the same system? What are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, it's a good question, John. I think obviously, I suppose, working with a single vendor and a single platform, even though it'll be different audiences and probably different system owners, I think what we see there's definitely advantages. Obviously, just from a tech consolidation perspective, it's probably going to be more economical. From a procurement perspective, dealing with one vendor, there's all of those advantages. But I think more so working with a vendor or a partner who really understands your business and the different use cases, so they can talk to your business better. With our customers, we put a result strategy in place with each of them, and we really try to understand the overall business goals and then how learning can feed into that. And so whether that's internal audiences or external audiences, I think it's really beneficial if you're having that conversation with a single vendor, because they can actually help join the dots, and they can kind of work and consult with you to go, okay, how do we see learning across our organization? What's our learning tech stack going to look like? What systems are we going to integrate with? And I think there's a lot of efficiencies there as well. Again, integrating with your HR system, maybe your CRM, whether it's HubSpot or Salesforce. There's just so much advantages. If that's a single platform, maybe you're pulling your reporting data into a data lake, into a data warehouse, where it's also pulling in your HR and your CRM and your finance information. You can start to combine all that together. It's much easier to do if it's all coming from a single platform, and really start to see the business impact of your learning programs, and get right down to what the practical ROI is. And we're seeing that with our customers. They're coming to us with insights that's just amazing, of what, even more than what they were expecting when they initially implemented the platform. I think on the downside, you probably give something up on flexibility. I mean, in an ideal world, if you can have a separate LMS for every use case, you can probably pick one that is very specific and tailored to that use case. And I think from that perspective, I would say, when you go with a single vendor, you probably have to streamline some things. And we talk to our customers about bringing them together, what process change they might have to make just to make sure they're getting the best value from the platform. I think if you had 3 different LMSs as an example, you can probably configure each one, and some will have different features that are more relevant, maybe give you a bit extra. So yeah, I think there's always, with these things, you have to, there's always some pros and cons, but obviously we're a bit biased. We feel a single platform's the way to go. But yeah, I think we've seen a lot of customers thinking that way as well.
Mm-hmm. And when you talk about that's a good answer for sure. When you talk about measuring and putting all that data in the data lake and getting the advantages of that, and your customers are seeing the advantages of that more than they anticipated, what are they measuring? Is it w- like is it training data or now actually moving the business needle in some areas?
Yeah. For us, it's all about moving the business needle. So we have a framework, as I mentioned, we call our results strategy. We really try to drive up into the overall business drivers. That generally falls into a couple of buckets, like it's increased revenue, reduce cost, reduce risk, for the most part. And I think any learning program, if you like, why are you doing this? And you start to walk it backwards, it will generally fall into one of those areas, maybe multiple. And so we try to understand that, and then we put metrics and KPIs in place. So we'll work with our learning leaders in our customer base and sort of send them on a mission to go out into the business and find out, okay, what are the KPIs here? What are we looking to measure? Is it the cost per support ticket? Is it the revenue per sales rep? Is it revenue, for partner, or whatever it might be? And we'll bring that back in. We'll measure what it is today. We'll obviously work with them to build our learning programs and roll them out, and we'll start to see what's moving the needle and to be able to actually properly measure that ROI. And we'll work with them to both change enablement, marketing plans in place. We see LearnUpon as just part of the solution. It's the technical component, but there's a lot more to a successful learning program than just implementing an LMS. And our customers go on that journey. Some of them are very experienced, and that's exactly where they want to start the conversation. Others are like, oh, I just want to roll out, my whatever training program, and why are you asking me these questions? But we work with them, and I think the impact and influence they have, and we can see the impact even on their careers when you're having those conversations with other business leaders and you're talking about the real business, needle movers that the learning programs are having. And it's combining that learning data with the data from, as I say, your finance system, your CRM. That's where you start to see the real value and the impact of your programs. And so it's been really enjoyable. We have a great customer community. We can see our customers are sharing what they're doing and where they're seeing success. And we love just being in the middle of that and in the middle of those conversations.
Wow, love it, love it. I can't believe we got 20 some minutes into this conversation. We didn't say the word AI yet. How's a how's AI impacting your solution? That's been the longest conversation I had all week without saying AI.
Yeah, it's controversial, John.
So how's that impacting your solution? Is that something you're thinking
Yeah,
about?
yeah, absolutely. I mean, I don't think we could be a tech company if we weren't investing heavily in AI as well. I think it's really interesting as I think about it. I think it's starting just to become a given. It's table stakes almost, at least for any vendor, any platform, not just in the LMS space, but right across the world. If you want to be taken seriously, I think you have to be leveraging AI into your platform. I think it's just going to become something like, do you have a good UX, and where are you leveraging AI across your platform? We've been looking at from, again, where it can have the biggest impact, a couple of areas. One is around the administration side. Obviously, there's a massive opportunity for AI there, just to put time back into the hands of administrators so they can focus on more value add. Again, back to that like result strategy, business impact. So things like just automating the creation of learning paths, personalized learning paths, being able to quickly spin up content, create assessments, leveraging AI. And then the other side we're thinking about is from the learner perspective, and that idea of an AI coach or assistant that can really help drive the learning impact of programs, challenge learners, ask them questions, nudges. And again, we've rolled out solutions there and the feedback's been very positive. So again, moving away from this idea that learning is just a one and done, I do the course and I don't think about it again, but kind of leveraging an AI coach to help reinforce those learnings, I think is really interesting. And yeah, so there, like we're kind of looking at it right across the app. We've built out our team over the last couple of years. I think the other area is just around content and search. We talked about at the start of the call, that idea of micro learning, very specific learning. What we're leveraging in AI now is as our customers bring content into the platform, we're using AI to tag that in relation to the content topics, the skills, all of those kind of things. And then that just makes it really easy to kind of layer a search engine over that, so that as and when someone has a question, they can leverage our assistant, they can get really tailored results back. So that's exciting. And I think there's just this kind of merging between learning and knowledge management is just becoming closer and closer together. So we're very interested in kind of what's happening in that space as well.
Awesome. Very cool. Last question already at the end of our time. What's your best advice for an L&D leader or customer education leader? I guess it doesn't matter which side, that discovers there's 3 other LMSs in their organization. How can they get the ball rolling towards consolidation? What advice would you give them? What's your best advice?
Yeah, I think the first thing is to connect with the other owners, the other LMS owners, and sit down and have a conversation about what are they using the platform for, what are their objectives, what do they like about the current platform, what do they not like, what are the frustrations. And I think if you start to bring that together across 2 or 3 different use cases, system owners, you'll start to quickly see there'll probably be common frustrations, there'll probably be common benefits. And as I mentioned earlier, I think you can look for areas where a lot of what we're doing is the same. And so if you can get those kind of things documented down, I think that creates a great opportunity to go, okay, let's go see if there's a single platform or a vendor out there that can allow us to bring all this under one roof. As I mentioned, I think there's some areas where you might need to make some process changes just to streamline things a little bit. And if the kind of key business leaders can get together and have those discussions, it works really well. We see a lot of similarity. We talk about the life cycle of a customer, from attaining the customer, onboarding them, kind of upskilling them as you release new features and services, right the way through to offboarding. And if you think it's a very similar cycle with an employee. So actually, when we think about how we build our platform and the features and functionality in it, we have that at the back of our heads. We're thinking about a customer life cycle, but also an employee life cycle. And it allows us to have a platform that works really well in both use cases. And so that's something, again, I think if you're sitting down with your peers across the business that have other learning platforms that they're using, start to think about the audience you're training and the life cycle, and then what makes sense. You'll be surprised how similar it is at the end of the day. And then you can kind of put together your requirements and what you're looking for in a new partner that can hopefully help you consolidate all those onto a single platform.
Outstanding. Sage advice. Brendan, welcome to the Talented Learning Show. It was great to have you here today. It was a fascinating conversation. Thanks for stopping by.
Thanks, John, and thanks for all you do for our industry and for keeping shining the spotlight on us. And looking forward to catching up and talking again soon.
Outstanding. Me too. Listeners, thanks for tuning in to another episode of the Talented Learning Show. We hope you found value. And if you're a small or medium-sized business out there without an LMS or too many LMSs, I encourage you to go take a look at LearnUpon and see if they can help you consolidate it. Have a great day, everyone. We'll see you on the next.